This is the iPhone 12. It's without a doubt the best iPhone yet, and the non-Pro version also represents the best value in the iPhone lineup at the moment. This is the Pixel 5. On paper, it might seem a bit bland in terms of specs and pure power compared to the iPhone, but actually it's the software that makes this a sweet spot for the Android ecosystem. I'm going to go ahead and say it, I've been using these phones for about a month now, and both of them have been an absolute joy to use, and you'll be happy with either of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. But what about cameras? The Pixel and the iPhone have always competed for top dog in terms of their phone cameras, with the Pixel relying on old hardware and new software, and Apple consistently updating their hardware and software, has the gap widened. Let's jump in and find out. The first shot is kind of a boring shot of this water fountain, taken with the portrait mode on both cameras. You can see the Pixel zooms in quite a bit, but still doesn't really achieve that blur as I'm too far away, whereas the iPhone doesn't zoom in and we still get some really nice natural looking blur in the background. Sharpness and detail here is very similar, but the iPhone retains some detail in actual water here. Here's a shot where the Pixel portrait mode actually worked, and it's super sharp, which seems to be the Pixel way. It's also warmer than the iPhone shot, but they both do a great job at the background separation. This is a non-portrait mode shot on both phones' main cameras. You'll notice in a lot of these shots the Pixel prefers a darker approach and the iPhone kind of bumps the exposure up a tad. That's a personal preference thing. But when you zoom into the plant here, there's definitely more detail from the iPhone 12 camera, and there seems to be less noise in the out of focus areas too. Let's move on to something more interesting, and this time a challenging portrait shot for both cameras, as there's depth in front of and behind the subject. As you can see, the Pixel zooms in but handles it pretty well. Maybe there's a leaf there which could be blurred a bit more, whereas the iPhone struggled with this one big time. There's a weird ghost leaf chilling there, and the cutout around these leaves is pretty bad. It's a weird one as the iPhone is normally really good for portrait, so not sure what happened there. Here's a simpler portrait, and I've tried to match the framing, but the Pixel is compressing the background a bit more as it zooms in a bit when you do portrait photos. It'd be nice if the iPhone did zoom in a bit more for portraits, as I think they'd look a bit more natural, but maybe they're trying to protect the 12 Pro with the telephoto camera. Either way, the Pixel performs pretty badly here. The cutout is awful and her face is just over sharpened. The iPhone is a much more pleasing look. Now this is a night shot thrown in, and I've had a shocker here because I honestly don't know which one I prefer. The Pixel is clearly doing a better job in retaining the detail in the darker areas, while still providing excellent dynamic range, but the iPhone is more true to life in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think of this one down in the comment section. Here's a shot from the wide angle lenses on both cameras, and at first glance I think the Pixel is doing better, especially with retaining those clouds here, and the colours just look a bit more autumn sunset, whereas the iPhone shot is not as warm. So for social media, the Pixel wins here. But if you're a Pixel peeper, pardon the pun, then you will notice some fringe in here in the trees, which is not present in the iPhone shot. This is just a regular shot with a regular camera, and both cameras here perform well. I think it's personal choice, but I prefer the warmer look of the Pixel, but you can easily warm the iPhone picture in post if you wanted to. In this video, I'm really impressed with the Pixel video quality. There's a lot of detail and it's not over sharpened like the Samsung footage. The iPhone is probably slightly more detailed here, but it seems to be having problems with focus, so I wasn't keen on this shot. It could be user error, as in theory I should have locked focus and exposure for this shot. In this video there's lots of differences. Both the iPhone and the Pixel do a good job of dynamic range. The Pixel probably slightly better, but the Pixel is just so noisy here. I appreciate it's a difficult situation, but it seems like where the iPhone has just tried to expose for a face, the Pixel has tried to maximise dynamic range, and in doing so introduced a lot of noise. This shot was taken with the wide angle cameras on both phones, and while the Pixel's ultra wide isn't as wide as the iPhone, they both look very respectable here, and they'll both be great for social media, so they both win in my eyes. But if we do zoom in enough, you'll notice that the iPhone shot contains a lot less detail, as you can't really make out what this sign says. Still, it's crazy that in 2020 we have to zoom into phone photos to notice small imperfections. They're just that good. Here's another portrait from both cameras, and again I think the Pixel's angle looks a lot more natural as it tries to zoom in to get a better shot for portraits. But if you look closer, it still feels over sharpened, and I much prefer the skin tones on the iPhone. In this shot from the wide angle cameras, in my opinion it's a night and day difference. The Pixel is over sharpened and hasn't exposed her face very well. The iPhone is also showing some natural blur in the background, which I really like. Again, the Pixel ultra wide isn't necessarily ultra wide, but it means there's less distortion in the head at the top of the frame. In this shot of this delicious looking cookies, the Pixel exposes slightly to the darker side, which again is personal preference, but for straight to social media shot I wouldn't be happy with this compared to the iPhone 12's balanced exposure. Both phones do a lot better than I expected with their super slow-mo. The iPhone in my opinion comes out top here because I think it just exposes her better and there's a lot less noise in the shadows, but honestly it's a difficult thing to pull off and Pixel does it really well. So in my opinion, I think the iPhone 12 came out on top in terms of photo and particularly with video as well. But it is interesting to see what Google have done with their software to make use of the old camera hardware in here. One thing I would recommend though is if you're going to take a lot of portrait photos on the iPhone, maybe go for the Pro version with the telephoto camera. In my opinion, portrait photos look a lot better the more telephoto you are, and this is why it's great that the Pixel actually zooms in for portrait photos. Even though they're a little bit over sharpened and I don't like the skin tones as much, it's still nice that it does zoom in. So to round it out then, you definitely won't be disappointed with the Pixel 5 for photos and videos. It's amazing to see what they're doing to combine hardware and software to create photos and videos that actually really hold up and are great for social media. It's also worth noting the price differences. The Pixel 5 I bought for $599 and the iPhone 12 was $849. So it's definitely the price difference there. And if you want to go up a little bit in quality, then I think the iPhone is definitely a good option. But if you really care about photos and videos, I'd definitely recommend going for the Pro version for that telephoto camera so you can take portrait shots. HDR Dolby Vision in 60 frames per second, and also the Apple Pro RAW that's coming out. That's it from me. If this video has been informative or helpful at all to you, then hit that thumbs up button, and if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.